Welcome to worship. I'm Kat. Today we are going to start with our chalice lighting. If you have yours at home, you can light it, and Jonah is going to lead us in our opening words and chalice lighting.
We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the Church of the Open Mind. This is the Church of the Loving Heart. This is the Church of the Helping Hands.
Thanks, Jonah. That was so good. So now, friends, we're going to sing a new song today that we have never sung at church before that I know of. Marion is going to lead us in it, and the lyrics are in your chat. This is a song called Blowin' in the Wind by Bob Dylan.
Okay, are we ready to sing? You can sing along with the words in the chat. How many years can a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? And how many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind.
Yay! Thank you, Marion. And thank you all for singing along. Did you notice that that song had a lot of questions in it? I wonder why. Maybe there's a clue in the Wonder Box or the Toolbox of Faith, because that has our tool each week. Let's see. There's very interesting things in the toolbox today. I'm not sure if any of them are tools. There is this red thing. There is another red thing. And there's a third red thing. I don't know what these are or why they are in our toolbox, but there does seem to be a tool. Maybe it will help us. Do you know what this is? Does it look familiar?
Magnifying glass.
It's a magnifying glass. And a magnifying glass helps us examine things. So I'm going to examine these red things that were in the toolbox and see if I can figure it out. They look like they might be tomatoes, but they look different than what I know, and I'm not sure exactly why. They're like a little bit longer and pointier, and they're definitely smaller. I wonder what they're trying to tell us. You know, this tool is a really powerful tool. It's helpful because questions help us figure out the physical world, like, what are these? Maybe little tomatoes. But questions, the same ones we asked to learn about the tomatoes, also figure out ourselves, our interior world, and the world around us. So if you see something you don't know, you might first think, what is this? And why is this different than what I know? And what is this trying to tell me? Just like we did with these tomatoes. And in fact, these unusual tomatoes remind me of a story. This is a story from when I was a young adult. I went to live in Uganda, which is a small country in East Africa. It was the first time that I was living on my own. I joined the Peace Corps, and I moved to a small village and needed to figure out how to do everything for sort of like the first time. So I needed to learn how to cook and get my own food and take care of myself, living on my own for the first time. So I decided to try that by going to the market because that was a good place to practice. Each day I would go to the market and I would buy a stack of tomatoes. And this was great practice because it was not very easy to do this. To buy a stack of tomatoes, I had to learn the local language. I had to learn how to barter, which is like negotiate. And I had to learn how to be respectful because I was in a new place with different culture and customs that I had to learn and then do. But I figured it out. Going to the market was great practice. Every day I would go, I would buy my tomatoes for 200 shillings, and I could come home and eat. And I felt really good. Like, I've done it. I know how to do this. One day I went to the market, and when I got there, they said, "Here are your tomatoes. Today they're 500 shillings. What? I thought they were 200 shillings. And I felt so confused because I thought I finally figured this out. And then I felt really hurt. Like, well, aren't you my friend and now you're charging me more? That doesn't seem right. And then I felt like a failure because if I couldn't even figure out how to buy tomatoes, how was I going to live there for 2 years? So that day I didn't buy any tomatoes. I bought onions instead, and onions are way less tasty. And later I was talking to my language trainer. His name was Richard, and he was really wise. And he would help me learn the local language, which was called Rugankore. And I said, "Richard, will you help me? I need to learn how to say, 'You are cheating me.' Because when I go to the market, that's what's happening. I'm trying to buy tomatoes and I know they cost 200 shillings. And now they're telling me they cost 500 shillings. And that doesn't seem right. So teach me what to say because I really need help figuring out this situation." And Richard, remember, he was very wise. He said, "Katty, do you know why tomatoes cost more right now?" And I said, "I don't know, probably because injustice and nobody likes me and I failed." And he was like, "No, none of those things make the tomatoes cost more. Tomatoes cost more right now because it is not the growing season for tomatoes, which means there are less tomatoes and they cost more for everyone." Mm. I felt really silly because that made a lot of sense. And I wish that I had asked why right when that happened, instead of feeling upset and hurt and confused. And it's actually okay to feel upset, hurt, and confused, but I should have paused after I felt those things and asked why. And that day, instead of teaching me how to say, "Are you cheating me?" Richard taught me the phrase, "Tinkumanya." And Tinkumanya means, "I don't know. Can you help me know?" And I used that phrase more in the next 2 years than any other phrase. And in fact, I have used that phrase more since returning and the rest of my life than almost any other phrase. Because that was a hard lesson, but a really important one that I learned that day. I learned way more than the cost of produce. I learned that when you don't understand, questions will help you figure it out. and that questions are this really valuable tool for navigating the world. To this day, one of my favorite questions is, can you tell me more about that? So my challenge for you today, or this week going forward, is to see if you can ask why, or can you tell me more about that? If you get into a tricky situation where you're feeling hurt or confused or upset, see if that phrase saves you too. It's, can you tell me more about that? My other challenge for you this week is to practice asking questions. And you can do that by playing a game. Because just like anything else, practice makes perfect, and it makes for more perfect questions. And some of the games you could try would be Jeopardy! Jeopardy is a game where you answer in the form of the question. So you might say, what are these tomatoes? If that was the answer. You can play 20 questions, which is a game where you ask 20 questions to try to figure out what something is. Or you could play the game that we're about to practice in our Zoom breakout groups. And this is a game where you answer a question with a question. Doesn't that sound fun? Can we give this a try after Joys and Sorrows? Do you see what I did there? They're all questions. So now you're going to get a chance to try. Alan is going to Zoom us to our breakout rooms, and then in 15 minutes, we'll return to extinguish our chalice together and have some time for our recess. See you soon.
In the